I never really got close enough to get really bummed out. Like I was close. I was never quite there to be like, oh, I just missed out. I'm a fairly big realist in the sense, like I knew I was good, but to put it all together consistently for me was pretty tough in Alpine.
Excellence is about standing, and excellence is a requirement for your dream to come true.
I think probably around like 5 or 6. I started skiing when I was 2, but 5 or 6 years old, just like trying to go as fast as possible down the bunny hill. Like that's all I wanted to do. I'd just go straight.
Do you have like memories for like the speed itself, or for like a fall or something that happened?
No fall, just wanting to go faster.
Nice.
Really.
Did you have like family or someone that was pushing you there? Were you born and raised in like an area where you had like hills and stuff?
My whole family grew up skiing. So I grew up in downtown Toronto, and we would travel down to south of Buffalo. So it's like 3 hours.
Okay.
Every weekend, and ski at a little place called Hollymont. And we would do that literally every weekend until I think my last year there when I was 16 years old.
Okay. So when did you start competing? Then did you have what was your family pushing you into like making that an actual occupation and sports, or was it really for fun for a very long time?
Oh, so completely for fun. They actually never pushed us ever. It was I specifically remember my parents had put us into the ski school, which is different than the racing school. And, in the ski school, you follow the kids down the instructor down the line in the little S, and you're always behind. And I remember looking over and seeing the racing school, kids my age, just bombing down the hill. And I was like, I want to do whatever they're doing.
And so
so my brother and sister, we both got put into all three of us got put into the racing program, and it kind of just took off from there.
Nice. Was there some sort of internal family competition between you and your siblings?
Like growing up?
Yeah.
Oh, forever. I mean, my younger sister, never really that competitive with her. She would always try, but it was definitely, chasing my older brother. He's got 2 years on me. He was always bigger, always better, and so I always just wanted to beat him, and that definitely, I think, made a big difference in my athletic career.
Yeah. What's the first memory of you beating him and becoming better, if that ever happened?
I think I was probably 17 or so, and I beat him for the first time in tennis, which was big. That was big. In skiing, it came. We both went to a ski academy in Lake Placid, New York. I was in 11th grade, and he was doing a postgraduate year, and that's when I got better than him in ski racing. And it happened, I would say, halfway through the season. I was just like, yeah, okay, I've got him now.
Nice. Were you like one-on-one races, or were you just taking part in the same, maybe like university or just regional competitions?
It was like fist races, and I definitely wasn't winning the fist races, but I was beating him.
Nice. That was your goal.
Oh, so yeah, exactly. Like I've won. We're done.
and so when did the goal of beating all the other ones came? Is there a moment that you remember as being kind of shifting your mindset between like fun competition between two brothers to actually trying to make it to like higher level? You went, I think, to the University of Vermont. You were initially in alpine skiing. So yeah, when did that transition happen?
To ski cross, or just to wanting to like be really good?
Yeah, being really good and trying to be like the best.
I would say after my so I did my 11th grade, 12th grade, and then I did a postgraduate year at the ski academy. And I would say it was during grade 12 and postgraduate where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to compete. And let's see where this goes. And then in between, it was a school called Northwood. In between Northwood and University of Vermont, I did 2 years on the Ontario provincial team, and that's where like it got serious. Like this is where training all summer. We're doing full workout programs where we're going hard, and that's when the I'd say the real drive hit.
Yeah, and so was there also a point in time where so you said that was the point where you knew you wanted to beat pretty much everybody, but was it also the moment where your mind shifted? You kept studying, but did you put ski as the number one like life
Oh
goal,
yeah.
and
Uh,
then studies just followed, and you would study wherever the ski was bringing you?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That was, yeah. I mean, my original goal was, growing up for sure, was to be an Olympic athlete, and then it became an Olympic athlete in Alpine. And then as I got older and went through UVM, because of my age, it was definitely looking less likely for Alpine. And that's when I was like, let's give ski cross a try.
And so, are there when you did that transition, it was not really a choice of, oh, I like this or I might be better at this. It was more. I read a few stuff about you saying that just alpine skiing is pushing hard on like young talent, and maybe at 24, 25, if you're not peak, then well, it's too late for you, and they won't put the same focus. So you were kind of pushed into like a new discipline. But how were you able to use whatever you acquired as like skills, whether it be mental or physical? How could you apply those skills to a like a whole new category in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my advantages in ski cross is my technical abilities in turning. It's different in Alpine because you have to do it, let's say, 50 times down a GS course. In ski cross, you might have 5 turns.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm fairly good at generating speed out of a turn and being able to do that, as well as uh, I'm very explosive and powerful, which benefits me in ski cross when you're pumping, when you're trying to create speed over these features. um, and I'd say, for whatever reason, I couldn't tell you how I developed this, but having a skier 6 inches from me as we're going 90 kilometers an hour down a course doesn't bother me at all. I love it.
Yeah, so it's funny because I talked to Reese, which Reese Howden, and
Yep.
that was one of the first thing when he transitioned as well. It's like it was like most people would not go there because you're used to basically skiing against a clock, and
Yeah.
just having your route that is kind of predetermined. Going into street cross is different. It's just you're racing other people, and it can be frightening for a bunch of people who will not even make the move because it seems more dangerous, and you have a bunch of stuff that you do not control when you do control pretty much everything when you are in alpine. So
Totally.
is that also the thrill of racing, the race versus someone versus, instead of the race versus a clock, is probably, yeah, there's more like adrenaline linked to it, and then maybe more a feeling of victory once you beat other people versus just looking at the screen and seeing that you have a best time or a better
For
time.
sure. Yeah, because the number of times you can come down in an Alpine race and you're like, man, that felt really good, and you look up and you're like, what? Like
Yeah.
the clock doesn't agree with me. Whereas in ski cross, the whole way. You can be in fourth, and one of the best thrills is like, okay, I'm gonna get these guys. Or
Yeah.
you can be in first and be like, all right, I gotta hold these guys up, right? Like, it's just every run is so different and so varied, um, and so exciting. Like, even in a bad race, it was still so fun to go down the course that you just want to keep going.
Yeah. So looking back now, was it for you? Would you have preferred to go into ski cross earlier? Was it fitting your natural abilities more? Would you think? Would you think?
Uh no, I don't think so, because especially nowadays, to be successful at ski cross, you have to have a good background in skiing. Like, you have more of an advantage if you can, be really quick in the turns and really technically stable. And I definitely needed those years at school to just perfect that.
Hmm. And so before you made the move came, I mean, it seems quite late at 26. I don't know if it's common to change from alpine to ski cross, and if so, if it is that late in the process or if it's earlier usually. But did you, when you were still in alpine and you felt you couldn't make it to the Olympics, on the mental aspect, which I like to dig into, was it something that over time got you, um, you know, did you feel a lot of low moments because you couldn't get to your basically dream, which was the Olympics? And if you did have like those lows because you couldn't reach that goal, how did you, cope with those moments?
I don't know if I had the lows necessarily in Alpine, because of, not succeeding. I never really got close enough to get really bummed out. Like I was close, but I was never quite there to be like, oh, I just missed out. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
I'm a fairly big realist in the sense, like I knew I was good, but to put it all together consistently for me was pretty tough in Alpine. And so no, I never really had that struggle. Definitely more struggles now with freaking injuries and stuff, but
So yeah, so that was next in the process. Is so you moved to ski cross. You're 26. It was 2014, probably 2014, 2015.
just 10 years ago.
Um,
Yeah.
and you make it to the Olympics 3 years ish after. So fairly quick, especially for like a new category. When you go there, and I think you finished fourth. Is it like, oh, you reach the top of the mountain, then you have to set a new goal, which is like World Cup or World Championship and all that? And yeah, if so, how do you kind of set those goals once you've reached what was probably your main goal since you were 12, 14 years old?
Oh yeah. I mean, competing at the Olympics was definitely like it was a changing point in my career, mostly because of what happened actually at the Olympics. Like it was a super dangerous course. Not dangerous. It was big, a lot of risk. And something clicked in me at the race where I said, okay, I've made it. Like I've completed my main goal as a kid to make the Olympics. I'm competing in the Olympics. And right before I pulled out of my first heat, I said, I mean, pardon my language, but I said, fuck it. Like if I break both my legs, fine. Like let's just go all out. We're not scared of anything, and go. And it it worked. And just and it wasn't that I was trying harder. It was more that I was just totally free. I could ski as relaxed as I wanted. Nothing was scary. Nothing was, making me tense up because I was like, whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, and how do you reach that mindset? Because it feels, I think it's what you say is basically we've heard it several times with other athletes or like sports team and all that say when we play, when our mind is free and we don't really put too much pressure on ourselves, that's pretty much when we perform the best. Business wise, it's kind of the same. It's like, oh, I'll launch this stuff and I'll see if it works out, and it does work out very often. But when you're kind of putting too much pressure on yourself, it doesn't, or it feels harder to get there. So do you feel that this result there at the Olympics, because you were so free in a sense, helped you get there?
Yeah, I mean, definitely helped the result there. Yeah, absolutely. And how did I get there? I couldn't even. I think it was just more of an acceptance of the result that will come. Right? Like I wasn't there thinking, "Ooh, I need to win a medal," or "Ooh, I need to make it to this placement." Whatever. It was just like,
Hmm.
I've made it. We're good.
Yeah.
Everything else
And
is
so,
bonus. And
yeah,
I would say that's a really tough mentality to repeat.
to keep that once you've, well, you had like a fourth place, then
Yeah,
it's hard to go to the next race and say, oh, whatever happens will be good, because you have that bar now that and you necessarily, and you, if you're there at the top level, it's because you are some sort of a competitor. There are extreme and there are some that are a bit less extreme, but if you are at that level, it's necessarily because you want to get better all the time. So if you've been fourth, you cannot say that, oh, if I'm sixth or seventh next time, it will be fine. You cannot think this way, right?
right, exactly. But that's part of it too, is not even thinking about the result. One of the biggest things that I worked on post the Olympic year, because the next year I was third in the World Cup, like
Yeah.
pretty good. And then the next year, with all my training, everything preseason, the coaches were like, "Oh, this kid's gonna win," and I didn't. I think I was like 15th overall, and I just struggled. I'd struggled, and I would force it. And the biggest thing I worked on with my sports psych then was learning how to. It's a self talk, right? Like, how do you get to that stage that I was at the Olympics, but repeatable? Because it's not just like I don't care, because I do care. So that was the whole process, and part of it was just having confidence was I would say the biggest one.
And how do you actually?
Building up.
Yeah. So how do you actually work on that? Sorry.
No. That's right. How do you work? And one of the things she used to talk about was having this Rolodex, right? Like if I've had a bad 2 races, it's so easy to be like, well, shit, maybe I'm not that good, what if blah, blah, blah. You can go down the rabbit hole. And then she would say, go to your Rolodex, like whether it's videos, whether it's in your head, whether it's notes, go in and look back and watch a race of you, going from 4th to 1st and winning the race and being like, shit, yeah, okay, I am that good, right? Like you can trust your skills. And the year I won the Globe, in the start gate, one of my not mantras was like I would focus on the first feature because that was it, right? Anything else is useless. I want to get over this first. And then no matter what happened, I had the confidence in myself that like if I'm 4th, I'm going to pass you. Like it was I was so confident that like I knew. And it didn't always work out, but most of the time it did.
So it did work out because you won the Crysta Globe in 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Then you get injured December, pretty much the same year, or at the beginning of the following season. Do you think that impacts all the work that you've done before on the mental aspect? Does that physical injury impact all of this?
That actual broken leg didn't. And I think one of the main facts for that is that was in December, and my first day back in a ski boot was in June. I think it was in June. Yeah. And it was purely like, let's just test this out. Like, will it hurt? Will it feel weird? And I'm just lucky it didn't. Like I half the time I forget what even leg I broke.
That's nice.
And yeah, exactly. But what did happen was because of that broken leg, it messed up for whatever reason, my patella tendon. And so I've been dealing with, a sore knee for the last 4 years.
Okay, so you didn't really ever recover the before the injury level that you had, physically speaking?
Yes. Yeah. Never. And I didn't even realize how much it was affecting me until this year when I was, in a hospital bed, high on morphine and self-reflecting, that I realized how much that knee was affecting my abilities on the hill.
And so what's up today? Where are you in terms of like your career, and how do you approach it? You probably have to you probably have to take a step back and realize that it's, if you don't recover that top level that you had in 2020, then there are other stuff out there. But yeah, where do you stand right now?
Yeah, we're in the process of healing. So I crashed in February, and fractured my shoulder, dislocated. So surgery on that, it's not too big, but the shoulder's healing really well, and that's not something I'm too concerned with. Because out of a start you pull with your arms, but then after that, you don't really need your arms that much for ski cross. And then I've now done 2 rounds of protein-rich plasma injections into my patella to try to stimulate a healing response, and it is working. It's slow, but it's feeling better and better every week. And so I'm at the point now where if I don't get to a position where I don't think about my knee, then I'm probably going to retire.
And so how do you today? We're what, mid-August? When does the season start
Our
officially?
first race is December.
Okay, so how do you go about like setting goals? And that's something that I'm very interested to hear. Usually, short term, like when you wake up in the morning, what do you set yourself as goals to achieve by the end of the day? And midterm, long term, how do you approach that? And let's say tomorrow you wake up, what's your daily objective, and how will you chase that?
In terms of my body, I've got a set, kind of workout plan that I get via an app from my team on the whether it's, partly with my physio, partly with our head trainer in Calgary. And I have that, but it's also so often just, how does it feel? Right? I wake up, I have my coffee, and I'm like, all right, how does the knee feel today? Are we gonna do those exercises? Does it need a day off? Can we push? And then same for the shoulder. Like, how is it feeling? Is it because with this stuff, it's so easy to push too quickly too soon, and then like right away, coming off the shoulder, I started to develop bicep tendonitis, which can happen, and so then you have to lay off it a bit. And it's just, I would say my daily occurrence now is just trying to cope with how slow this process is.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm definitely getting better at accepting, what life is currently. But it's also very reassuring to see the progress over the last 5 months,
Mm-hmm.
and how far it's come, even though every day it feels like it's not moving at all.
Yeah. So now looking forward, what would you say? What would you consider success? Let's say early December when the season starts, and let's say a year from now.
I would say, I mean, the knee will only progress so far in the next, say, 2 months.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like there is a timeline where all the healing that can be done has been done, and where's it at? And I've done the max kind of number of injections, so you can't, doing 3, doing 4 doesn't make it better.
Yeah.
And so I would say, come beginning of November, if the knee isn't where it should be, then that's kind of where I'm. I'll just call it. Which, I mean, I think I've had a pretty successful career. I'm not. I'm not a super bummed to be con. It's not like I'm 25 and I've still got a ton left in me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do decide that to pull the plug, what's next? You probably thought of it.
No, no.
No. Okay. So let's
uh,
now.
yeah. What do I want to do next? It's a tough question. I genuinely, I don't know. I love business. I'd like to, whether it's help my wife out with her small business, or start something of my own, work in sales. I genuinely, I think I would take the time to see what I can find out in the world and what interests me.
Mhm.
Because I don't even know.
You don't feel that need, and it's totally fine. But it's surprising. It's a lot of athletes that I've talked to, and especially those getting towards the end of their career, they say, "Oh, I'll try to go back into coaching. I'll try to, in a way or another, stay around the sports." You don't seem around. I mean, aligned with that necessarily. You're like, "Oh, I'll just do whatever feels right or whatever I feel like doing." There is no, you don't have that link, or you don't feel like you need to stay around like skiing or ski cross, right?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I would love to coach.
Okay.
Like, I think if you ask most of my teammates, I kind of coach them on the side anyways. That's one of the things I love doing. I love helping people. I love seeing people progress. But if I retire from skiing, the last thing I'm going to do is travel more than what I'm already doing as a coach.
Nice. I'm surprised also that you've been
I
traveling
think
so
if
much, probably.
if I took a job with the Canadian ski team, I would probably get divorced.
Okay, noted down.
Yeah.
So, looking on your career, what would you say is the highest point that you've reached, and what would you say is the lowest point? Sorry, that you've learned. I mean, that you've reached and that you've learned from. Sorry.
I mean, highest point was definitely winning the Globe.
Yeah.
Even though that was it was pretty tough, because I never had that moment. And COVID, canceled the last race of the season, so there was no prize ceremony. I never got to stand there and with my Crysta Globe and hear the Canadian national anthem. And which definitely changed it. Sometimes it never even feels like I won the Globe, even though I have it sitting over there in the corner. But
But it is still in the books because I also saw that online, and there are a few stuff around it. So you did win it.
I did. It's there. But this conversation came up the other day with, I don't know if you know what happened with Jordan Biles and the Romanian gymnast, and the medal was taken away. And
Oh yeah. So it
yeah,
feels like
it was it just happened in the Olympics, but it was very similar. When you don't have that moment, it really changes the feeling of the gratification of all the work you put into it.
yeah.
But it still is I would say the highest moment. More specifically, crossing the finish line in Megève, France there were still 3 more World Cups to happen that year, and I won the race and I secured the overall. So I had a big enough lead that no one could pass me, and that was definitely the highest moment because they announced it, and my parents had flown out to watch that race, and it was just freaking awesome.
With 3 races to go is pretty pretty legit, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was an unbelievable year. And lowest moment. That's tough. It could have been. No, it's actually not tough. It's pretty easy now that I think about it. Around 3 months after I broke my leg, right? They say bones heal in 3 months and you should be good to go. And I was told, okay, you can start to do some activities. So I put on my touring stuff and I went to this little kiddie hill here in Vermont to get some exercise. And it hurt so badly, and I could feel the bone moving in my leg. That I could barely walk back to the car. I just sat in my car alone crying, being like this thing's never going to heal. I'm never going to walk normally. It was just kind of all the emotions hit of 3 months of just sitting around.
Yeah.
And it turns out the bone wasn't healed.
So you didn't have like a radio or X-rays or anything prior to that to say, hey, it might not actually be perfectly ready for that.
I wasn't like skiing. It was literally a bunny hill, and I was just trying to get a little exercise. But no, it was never. They had done X-rays, maybe 3-4 weeks earlier, being like, okay, this is progressing. It's looking okay, but it wasn't. It took. I think it took 5.5 months till it was like healed.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
what
And
happens?
the only
So
reason.
yeah, for someone like
Sorry.
you who's always like on the slopes and just doing a bunch of stuff and always active, probably, what do you do between, let's say, December and that month of February, 3 months when you cannot even put your weight on your leg? How does a day look like, and how is your brain working these days?
Nowadays, it's doing a little better. When I broke my leg initially, there was a lot of video games being played.
Okay, so it's very there's no like physical activity, upper body, anything. It's just weight.
Yeah, I would definitely not at the start. Definitely some, I hit some lows with it's not even worth it. I can't move that well, whatever, and so I would just sit and play video games, and it was definitely not healthy, but I worked my way out of it, and especially with help from my sports psych. She, got my head back in it, kind of recreated some of that drive to succeed, which sometimes you just need a kickstart. You need someone to be like, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was tough. And I mean, this injury was definitely tough, more so because with a normal shoulder surgery that I had with a labrum, it's not that bad. Like, it's bad, but it's not horrible. But I shattered the outside of my shoulder, right where your rotator cuff attaches. And so I was not allowed to move my arm for basically 3 months. Like, if I were to have lifted my arm up, activate those rotator cuffs, it would pull the bone off the butt, because it wasn't just a chunk; it was literally pieces. It would just pull
Wow.
those pieces off, and then I would have no more rotator cuff. Yeah, it was it was bad.
Yeah,
So you can't do anything. You're just
yeah, yeah. And do you think? Um, so you mentioned physically that you never really yet recovered from the initial leg injury, but as an athlete in general, do you think those injuries end up making you better and just kind of being able to um, put things in perspective in general, or are they more? Do you see them more like a stop or a slowdown in your just overall journey?
uh, I think it depends. I think with my leg that summer when it had finally healed and I got cleared, uh, sorry, that I yeah, the next year when I finally had a block to actually work out, I had this fire in me that was like let's go. So in that way, yes, it rekindled a fire, right? Because you've been knocked down and you want to get back up to here,
Yeah,
and sometimes even higher, right? So in that way, it can help. In other ways, with with the patella, it's definitely a slowdown because you can't. It's such a pain in the ass injury
yeah,
because it's just always there, and it's not like you can muscle through it because when it starts to get aggravated, it shuts down your muscles. There's nothing you can do about it, and so it's just trying to manage that and less volume, and it's so that's why we're trying to fix it.
nice. Um, if you had 10 seconds with 10-year-old Kevin, what would you tell him?
Whew, that's a good question. Uh, I don't even because I wouldn't necessarily change anything. I would say just enjoy it. Enjoy enjoy every moment doing what you love because it will end, and I see it with my wife. She was a very very good cross country skier, and she it was partly financial. She couldn't continue. It was getting too expensive, and so she stopped, and I see it now. It kills her. She wished she could keep doing it.
Yeah,
And so that's, yeah, I would say just enjoy it, which I'd say I did a fairly good job of growing up. Um,
nice.
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
question.
Uh, and that's one thing off topic in a sense, but you mentioned that your wife had to stop for like financial reason. Do you think Canada loses talent, or maybe not just Canada, it's just all countries lose talent because of the lack of like financial support for, less famous sports, I would say.
Oh,
Those who
for
are
sure,
like,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, she was a cross country skier in the U.S. and post college or post university. They're so underfunded that there's only 3 girls that are actually on the U.S. ski team. And to get on that U.S. ski team, you have to be racing World Cup. So if you're coming out of university, you have no choice except for paying 30,000-40,000 US dollars to race that year. And so in that sense, yes. And in skiing too, there's when I was on the Ontario ski team, it was uh, $25,000 to ski, and now I think it's more, like a lot more, which you just kids can't afford that, and then that puts also more pressure on them.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer, but I mean, you're not the first one, obviously, but especially in the when you're talking like soccer, hockey, basketball, whatever, lots of athletes. I mean, even those we saw in the past few weeks in Paris, most of them they just struggle. And if they're here, it's because they have so much willpower and they want it so bad that they make so many sacrifices to be there and get their moment and all that. So I think it's sad and fascinating at the same time that
Yeah,
so many amazing athletes that make our country shine are actually just struggling pretty much every single day.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, I would say a country like the U.S. definitely has. They put. I wouldn't say they put more money into sport necessarily, but more companies and sponsorships care about sports. So it's a
Yeah.
lot easier to get sponsors in the smaller sports in the US than it is in Canada for sure.
Well, unfortunately, I think we won't solve it here, but I
Yeah, no,
think
we
yeah,
definitely
it's
won't.
uh, it's definitely one of the things that hopefully at some point in life, well, we can also all as like fans and athletes don't be able to change. Um, are you active on social media? Where should no whoever will listen to this podcast, where should they follow you?
Yeah, I would say I'm only active on Instagram, and even that I haven't been doing super well at recently. But my Instagram name is at drury.kc.
Nice, perfect. So I'll put that in the
Yeah.
notes. The
Okay.
last two questions, which I always ask, one is if do you have one person that you know and that you would like to hear here on the podcast? Of course, an athlete, Canadian or not, ski or not. Oh,
Right.
a
That's my
visitor.
cat. Sorry, what was the question? Is there someone I want to hear on the podcast?
Yeah, who would be someone you know that you would like to hear here on the podcast?
Uh, I mean, in terms of mental, because a lot of this has been talking about mental and daily and stuff like that. I would say one of my old teammates, Brady Lehman. He's the Olympic gold medalist.
Okay.
I would love to hear more about how because he broke his leg 3 times and has come back and win and it's been a pretty incredible to watch him succeed in his career.
Nice. So I'll try reaching out.
There we go.
And the last one is what you see here that I've set up. The cat is here. It wants to talk. So I've set up here a recording studio, and I've created what I call a wall of fame or a wall of sports, whatever it might be. And I have a bunch of like gears, and you see a few skiing stuff from
Yep. Yep.
Laurent Saint Germain, Lionel Meyer. I think there's another one, yeah, over there as well. Is
Okay.
there anything that you think of that you've used during your career? It could be a bib or anything that you could send over so I can add you to this wall.
I can definitely send you over a bib. Yep.
Wonderful, perfect.
For
So I'll
sure.
send you the address. I'll send you also a prepaid envelope, and I'll add
Okay.
you here. I actually have a new, completely white wall right there because I already have too many
Ooh,
things to. I'm gonna call it a museum at some point. I'll have people visit it.
that is
Wonderful.
awesome.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for your time. Hopefully we'll see you on the slopes in December and so on.
Yep. Fingers
If not,
crossed.
then we'll see you somewhere else in the world of sports or completely outside.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Cheers.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye bye.